Community interactions. The interactions between organisms within a community. Your learning goals for today are: describe the types of community interactions, competition and predation. Explain the types of symbiosis and give examples of mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. We need to learn a few terms first. Abiotic factors are the non-living parts of the ecosystem. For instance, water, weather, that would include rain, sunshine, things like that, and soil. Those are all non-living but essential parts of an ecosystem. The biotic factors are the living parts of an ecosystem. So if we were talking about a pond, for instance, the living parts would be the aquatic plants, the insects, the fish, frogs, all the things that live in the pond. The abiotic factors would be things like the water in the pond, the mud, the rocks, things like that. Habitat is where something lives, where an organism lives, and it includes both the biotic and the abiotic factors. So habitat is your address, you might say. If you're a white-tailed deer here in Virginia, then your habitat is the temperate deciduous forest. If you're an alligator, then your habitat is the swamp. This is where you live. A niche is different than a habitat. A niche is like your job. It's what you do to make a living. It's how you obtain your energy. It's the way you use the non-living parts of the ecosystem. It includes the food that you eat, how you get your food, and the conditions you need to survive. For instance, if you're a star-nosed mole and you dig through the soil until you find a nice juicy worm and then you gobble them up. If you're a hummingbird, your niche is to drink nectar from these long, slender flowers, and you're adapted to use these flowers. If you're a great white shark, your habitat is the ocean, and your niche is to lay at the bottom and wait for a seal to come by and then ambush them. Competition is when organisms or the same or different species try to use the same resources. You might compete for food, space or shelter, water, things like that. Two species cannot occupy the same niche at the same time. So here's some competition between two members of the same species fighting over a little crab. Here's competition between members of different species. Here this little ground squirrel's got a nice juicy nut, and these birds are trying to take it away from him. This doesn't look like competition, but it is. These plants are competing for sunlight, growing space, water, nutrients in the soil. There's a lot of competition going on here, even though it looks very peaceful. And here's competition between members of the same species for nesting space. These are seabirds that nest on a small island. There's limited space, and they're all crowded together, and they compete for a place to raise their babies. Predation is when one organism captures and eats another. And that's pretty obvious. Here this lynx is trying to capture this snowshoe hare and eat him. A predator is the one that's doing the eating, and the prey is the one that's being eaten. Okay, hit pause, answer these questions, and when you're ready, hit play. What's the difference between habitat and niche? Habitat is your address. It's where you live. Your niche is what you do to make a living. If Mount Vernon High School was an ecosystem, what would 4 abiotic factors be? They would be the desks, the chairs, the computers, the papers, the books, all the non-living things. What's the difference between competition and predation? Competition is where you compete for resources. Two members of the same species or two different species might compete for the same food or space. Predation is where one organism eats another. Okay, symbiosis is when two species live closely together. Notice it says two species, not the same species, right? My wife and I live closely together and have for 30-some years, but we're two members of the same species, so that's not symbiosis. Mutualism is a type of symbiosis where both species benefit from living closely together. Here's some examples. This clownfish is immune to the stinging poisonous tentacles of the sea anemone. Now the sea anemone benefits because when the clownfish eats fish, other little fish, it's going to drop little crumbs in here, little fish bits, and the anemone is going to eat them. The clownfish benefits because it's protected from predators. How about lichens? Lichens are a combination of algae and fungus that live very closely together. The fungus provides a structure for the algae to live on and in, and the algae converts sunlight into food energy, which the fungus gets to share. And pollination by insects. The insect obviously gets a benefit because it drinks this sweet nectar from the flower, but the flower gets a benefit because this insect is going to carry its pollen to different flowers. Ants and aphids. Ants sometimes farm aphids. They protect the aphids from predators, and the aphids secrete a sweet liquid that the ants eat. Commensalism is when one benefits, but the other is neither helped nor harmed. And a great example of that is Spanish moss growing in a tree. Spanish moss is a plant that absorbs water and dust and nutrients from the air. All it needs is a place to live, so it grows and hangs off the limbs of the tree. It doesn't grow into the tree, it doesn't harm the tree, but the tree doesn't receive any benefit. The Spanish moss benefits, but the tree is unharmed. Barnacles are organisms that attach to stationary objects in the ocean, and they filter plankton from the water. They just need a place to anchor. And oftentimes they'll anchor on oysters. The barnacle benefits because it has a place to live, but the oyster is neither harmed nor helped. Parasitism is when one is harmed and one is benefited. So one species gets harmed, but the other species benefits. A great example of that is a tapeworm. The tapeworm attaches to the lining of your small intestine and absorbs the food that you've eaten, basically steals your food. You're harmed, the tapeworm benefits. Mosquitoes. Mosquitoes suck your blood. That's obviously a benefit to the mosquito, but it's not much of a benefit to you. In fact, it harms you. And ticks, same as mosquitoes. They burrow into your skin and drink your blood. They definitely have a benefit, but you get harmed. So hit pause, answer these questions, and then we'll go on. What do we call it when two different species live closely together? Well, that's symbiosis. What is commensalism? That's when two different species live closely together and one is benefited and the other is neither harmed nor helped. It's unharmed. What is mutualism? That's when two species live closely together and both are benefited. And what is parasitism? Parasitism is when two species live closely together, one is harmed and one is benefited.